Hi, my name is Owen. Today I'll be doing a quick review of Frank W. Janus's Bringer of Light. What I want to do is give a brief overview of what the book is about, tell you things that I liked, and tell you things that I didn't like. Quick disclaimer before we get started. I just want to say that the author did reach out to me, and he sent me a free copy of his book in exchange for a review, which obviously I agreed to. But I just wanted to tell you guys that I was not paid or sponsored to give a positive or a biased review. My thoughts are completely unfiltered. My true feelings will be shared today. Ooh. Frank just recently published his book, self-published his book, and he wanted to expand his reach a little bit, so he's generous enough to send me a copy, which I greatly appreciate, but just wanted to let you guys know that I was sent a free copy, but my thoughts are still genuine. Jumping straight into the overview, this is a science fiction novel, which is a genre I have yet to explore fully, so I was happy that it was in that genre. The setting's all over the place. You got Europe, you got America, you got, like, sea voyages in the 19th century. You got the present day, you got the near future, you got the far future. It's all over the place. It's very sci-fi. There's time travel, time-oriented technology, futuristic tech. It runs the gambit in the best way possible. This book really explores the idea of like what it means to be like autonomous, what it means to be free, like the meaning of life and the meaning of struggle, and how that plays into technology and how that makes our lives easier, and does that conflict with freedom. And it's a very interesting debate, one that I haven't really seen explored. But like I said, I haven't read a lot of sci-fi, but I thought it was a very unique philosophical debate, which the book really explores. And it does a really good job of it, if I'm going to give a little spoiler into my thoughts. Jumping straight into the things that I like, it's very clear that this author was inspired by classic literature. I mean, it's even in the blurb, inspired by the works of Jules Verne and H.G. Wells. That is extremely present in the writing style of this book. And what do I mean by like the classic writing style? It's the way that like the dialogue, in my opinion, and the prose, it's almost wordy, but not in like a too wordy way, because like classical novels will go off in tangents. Like Tolkien talks about a tree for an hour and a half, and Moby Dick, which I'm reading right now, which is a slog, let me tell you, just goes like off on tangents of like informing you like that. It's not that kind of verbose, but it's a similar style of everything is fully explained, and the dialogue is almost monologues back and forth. It's very intellectual, because I feel like the difference between like modern books is like a modern book is the story, right? But a classic book is the story as a vehicle for information. And this is one of those books, like classic books, where you read it and you feel smarter, even though it's like fiction, which I really appreciate. And I really like the philosophical, thought-provoking dialogue and conversations that characters have, which I really liked in this book, because it's very clear the inspiration there. So very inspired by classic literature, I think, which I really enjoy that style. But the even better part is it's the classic style written by a modern author. So like I said, it doesn't get bogged down in over-explaining pointless things, like how like trees will look, or like trying to like teach us about whaling extensively by giving us the most specific, minute details. Listen, I don't want to spoil Moby Dick for you, but there's a lot of that, if I'm being honest. But this book doesn't do that, because this is a modern author, and he still knows you got to get to the point. So it's like the philosophical, intellectual dialogue and conversations mixed with modern storytelling techniques. And that does clash a little bit, I'm not going to lie, in the writing, because there's some, when I was reading the book, like maybe a couple pages in, when it's the modern day, one of the characters says awesome, and that really threw me off. I'm like, wait a minute, this book was published, in fact, in 2022. So, but like the word awesome used in the context of like modern vernacular, like really threw me off. That's how much it felt like I was reading like a really old book, in the best way possible. So I really liked that. But another thing I liked is the main character, Rabin Valland. Even if he's not the POV character, the POV characters are people that interact with him either directly or indirectly. And he's such a fascinating character, because he's almost cold. It is very reminiscent. Like, I know he said in the blurb that Frank was inspired by Jules Verne, very Captain Nemo-esque, where he's like aloof, and he's got like a vendetta, and you could tell he's cool, he's calm, but there's like a simmering darkness in there, and you don't know for most of the book what exactly he's doing, what exactly his plan is with this whole like his war against technology and his fight for humanity and stuff like that. You don't really know like what his point is or what he's trying to do. And the whole time in the back of your mind, he's one of those characters where he's like, I think he's a good guy, but maybe not. And it's very fascinating. And he was a very, very interesting character to be like the focal point. And I really liked what he did with the POV characters, where there were times when it felt like I was being introduced to like new characters like a lot, and it was very distracting for me. But eventually when I got the formula where, okay, this guy or this girl is going to be connected to Raven in some way, I'm locked in, because this guy, I want to learn more about him. And he's an enigma. Even though he's the main character, he's an enigma. And I don't know if he's good or bad at the very end. And it's still left up for debate at the end even. And it's kind of a gray area. I don't want to really spoil the details for you, but it's very, very fascinating. And I'll get a little bit more towards the ending later. But going into things that I didn't like, it's honestly connected to the same things that I did like with like the classic novel structure. Even though it's not overly wordy and doesn't get caught in the bogs too much, it is a little overlong. And what's the difference between not wordy but long? It just feels like sometimes the story like meandered a bit, if you know what I mean. Like I said, like with the constantly adding like new POVs, like just for a chapter, when I'm reading it in the moment, it felt unnecessary. And the thing about this book where like kind of like makes my argument not valid is that everything in the book is relevant to the end. But when you're reading it the first time, you don't know that. So I felt like when I was reading it, I'm like, I don't care. Because there's like, all right, so I'm just going to explain this to you real quick. The main subplot, Raven Valand. Side plot, 19th century sailors trapped on a deserted island. Weird stuff going on, right? So those are like the two main plot lines going through. And every once in a while, you'll be introduced to like a random character in a random time period in the future or in the present or even in the past. And you don't know how it's connected to the main story until like towards the end. But when you're first introduced to it, it's like a no context momentum destroyer, which is a lot of problem with multiple POV books. And it just felt when I was reading it, I'm like, come on, get to the good stuff, get to the good stuff. I don't understand it. I don't understand what the point is. However, to make my argument not valid, the ending of this book, the plot twist at the end, made everything worth it. I don't want to spoil it at all, why it all comes together or how it all comes together. Because it says in the back, it's like, how are these stories all connected? You got to read to find out. It's like, all right, yeah, whatever. I'll read to find out. And I read to found out. I read and I found out. And it was a very clever twist that I didn't see coming. But as soon as it was revealed, it all made perfect sense. Because this is one of those books when you're reading it, not only do you feel like you're getting smarter because of like the intellectual and moral and philosophical debates that the characters are having, it's just like, it's one of those books where you're confused the whole time. You're like, I don't really know what Raven's deal is. I don't know what's going on with these islanders. I'm just as confused as them. I'm not picking up any hints, and I don't get it until it's like, boom, light switch, curtain flies up. Welcome. This is the twist. And you're just like, wow. And I'm sorry I'm being vague and metaphorical, but that's just how I felt. And I cannot spoil this book for you. I cannot do that. I cannot. Let's just know. I just want to say this. Raven Valand. He's crazy. He's a crazy man. Not in a bad way or a good way. I'm not going to tell you which. But it's crazy. But I really, the ending did make everything worth it. So like, my complaints are all like in the moment things. I still think it probably could be cut down overall. But in the moment, I felt like, because I didn't understand exactly all the details, which you're not supposed to, it was a little bogged down. But this is a book that benefits greatly from a reread, knowing the context of the end, throughout the whole story. I could already tell it'd be such an enriching reread. So overall, I really enjoyed this book. And I honestly, Frank, I didn't think I would, just because like I haven't explored self-published nearly as much as I should have. And you know, it's scary too, a self-published book in a genre I'm not super familiar with, and it's a long book. I was worried. My worries were unfounded, and I highly recommend that you guys check out this book. I'm going to put the Amazon link in my description so you guys can check it out, because one thing that's got me researching is the self-publishing industry. Thousands of books are being self-published nowadays. It's getting more popular, but it's still so hard. And authors like Frank, who put in all this work to do the impossible of writing a novel, and writing a good novel nonetheless, It's just the next hardest step is getting readers, right? He did all the work, and now it's time for us to actually read the art that is being created. So I'm going to support Frank. I'm going to put his link in the description. I highly recommend that you guys check it out and subscribe if you haven't already, because I'll be posting more reviews like this. And also like the video. It helps a lot. It'll help me, and it'll expand our reach to get Frank as many readers as he deserves. I want this book to go mainstream. Thank you so much, guys, and thank you, Frank, for sending me this book. Keep reading, guys.